Welcome to the Developing Life Podcast. Welcome to the Developing Life Podcast. What does it take to build a career that survives trends, technology, and the pressure to constantly conform? We are honored today to have with us Matt Wood, professional illustrator, creative thinker, and independent studio owner who has built and sustained a career on doing things differently. With over 27 years of experience as an independent creative, Matt launched his own studio in 1998 after a long career as a designer and art director, creating a path rooted in originality rather than convention. His work as an editorial illustrator has attracted a wide range of clients through his fully customized, multi-style illustration approach, with projects spanning advertising campaigns for brands like Honda, New Belgium Brewing, and Red Robin restaurants, as well as hundreds of trade magazines and nationally recognized editorial titles. Matt's work has always centered on the one core principle: using art as a tool to clearly communicate complex ideas in ways that connect deeply with people. Rather than chasing visibility or industry hype, he intentionally built a durable, down-to-earth business that survived the dot-com crash, 9/11, the 2008 financial crisis, and the 2020 pandemic by staying adaptable, collaborative, and deeply human. Matt has continuously evolved through experimentation and unconventional offerings, including his current AI-resistant concept known as brand tattooing. And through it all, he has remained committed to creative independence, proving that sometimes the best way to move forward is refusing to follow the expected path. With our host, Heather Crank, Matt shares his perspective on illustration, creative survival, and why human ideas still win.
Thank you, True. Welcome, Matt Wood.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this.
So, Matt, you and I met many years ago in Denver when I was working with a company and I needed an illustrator. And I hired you and I just liked you right away. Oh. But one thing I never knew was where you came from. I knew you spent a long time in Colorado, but I would love to hear about where you come from and how you started the illustration career. Was it always with you or was it something you developed?
30 years in Colorado and meeting you for the first time, I keep on bringing this up every time we've talked about this. The first time that I met you, we hugged because I just felt like we just were one spirit, right? And so I feel like I've known you for all my life. And my background wasn't in Colorado. I moved to Colorado. I grew up in Nevada. My earliest history was I'm kind of like second family in a military family that my siblings and above me are 7 years, 10 years, and 12 years. And so that was the family that toured the world and saw everything. And then by the time I came along, we were in Nevada. And then my parents split up and I was kind of just stuck in this little town. And so I didn't get the experience that they did of seeing the world. But I was born overseas. And in Nevada, I was there for probably about 20 years. And then I came to Colorado. And yeah, that was my beginnings. And the thing that really kept me sane during all of those years, because I didn't want to be there. It wasn't beneficial for me. It wasn't the world that I wanted to be in. I was lucky enough, the universe had instilled in me and my siblings some sense of art where it just came easy for us. And so it was something, that creative gene was just there for whatever reason. And I knew that was the one thing that was going to get me out. And that's always been my story, that I saw what was ahead of me and I said, I have to change this. And that's from an early age. So I was actually, at the time, my mom had married someone else who was of little better means. I mean, by no means we were really set in anything, but we had a house and he had a pool table. And my pool table became my working desk from literally 11 to 19. And I would spread out all of my stuff and I would draw constantly. I was up till 3:00 in the morning on school nights. I was absolutely determined to become the creative that I ended up being today, I guess.
Wow. So you start drawing and you're 11 and you're moving into your career and you eventually move into an art director position years later. So why did you leave that art director position and start your own business?
My first clients were at 13. So I actually was doing logos. I was doing logos, and for businesses, I was creating illustrations for businesses locally.
Mm-hmm.
And I had built up enough of a portfolio to walk into a place that was in that small town, which is shocking. There's a naval base that's there, and they had an opening for a contracted position. And my whole portfolio, when I walked in, the art director looked at me and he said, "My God," and I was 18. He said, "My God, how long have you been doing this?" And I said, "Name and age. I've been doing this for forever." And so they picked me up and they said, "This is better work than I've seen people do that are in their 20s and 30s."
Wow.
So when I moved into that position, I was ready to go. And so I began that whole position as a graphic designer. And then moving to Colorado, I moved into a graphic design, kind of continued on with that thing. And then eventually came to in-house art director. And just because everything that I moved into, I kept moving upwards and I wanted to take on more responsibility. I just felt like I had a vision for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, when I was picking up my own freelance work on top of that, I was working with clients and working in the design sort of space. Clients are both a blessing and a curse. And I'm just like, I love working with these people, but then it just gets really monotonous and kind of scary to be taking something to print and you've got like $100,000 of things being printed and it had better be right and having, your guts twisted in knots. And I'm just like, I don't need this anymore. And I would rather do something on my own. I had picked up some work from some magazines that have reached out to me to do illustration. And I realized that it was the love of my life. It wasn't me struggling to try to come up with a concept and convince something of something and work the whole process of revisions and things. It was just pure instinct and coming up with stuff, and they would fall in love with it, and I made them feel good and look good. And we just started. I just decided that that's my career. I don't need to be working for somebody else anymore.
So, can you explain to me what a quote human-centered business is?
Human-centered business. I because I was an art director and because I was in this field, I realized what it took. And I realized that the people that you're working with are everything. Either they're helping you out or they're making things more difficult, or maybe things aren't like lining up. And so it was always on my own, I realized that I am here to be the best assistant or the best vendor that this person has ever hired. So I'm not only going to come at them with better ideas than they've probably ever seen, but more ideas and more choices. And that was the feedback that I got, was that like, it's so easy to work with you. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of like why I created the entire multi-illustration style business, because I wanted to work with almost anybody in any sort of field. And so I guess if that's human-centered, it's just respect for the people in the creative world, that they have a job to do. Mm-hmm. And the human-centered part of it is also that my technology has never replaced who I am. I feel like my connection is always with the excitement level that's inside of me for doing something creative and coming up with a new idea or breaking new ground. So maybe that explains it.
Yeah. I'm going to segue to another topic because something you just said just piqued my interest. So we have a lot of AI disruption going on in our industry. And I feel like a lot of people, first of all, it's the way it's learned, I understand, is really awful for artists and illustrators and people who put the work on the web. But I do feel like there's some confusion around being a creative versus being defined by a tool. I would love to hear your thoughts on this topic and how AI has affected you and how you feel like it's affecting the creative industry.
Let me see. The first thing that crosses my mind is that times have changed so much in the world that I was coming up in and built a career into. it was, there were possibilities that were there. There were job opportunities everywhere. I didn't even realize it at the time how much we had it good, how good it was at the time. Because there were so many people that were out there doing amazing things and trying new things, and it was the advent of the computer. And I lived through the stage of like doing physical pay stuff. I'm that old, and working with all of the different tools and stuff. But creativity always had to lead that. You had to have a vision for what you're going to be doing, and then your hands needed to follow, and that needed to be built into whatever. And then all of a sudden we're getting software programs, and that's coming in. And of course there was like upheaval about, is this going to be replacing creativity at the time, Photoshop and everything else? And the only thing that was like frustrating to me was how slow it was. I was like, okay, this is interesting, but it's slow. And the learning curve seems to be kind of strange because I'm no longer working with my hands. I'm building everything on screen. But then there were a lot of advantages to it that eventually I started to kind of get into and learn a little bit more about. And that was the world that was there. And so that was creativity at the time. It was valued and people were being picked up because of their creativity. And as tools started to get more powerful and things started to change and the internet came along, and I couldn't even believe that all of a sudden magazines would not be in existence. I'm like, this is not going to happen. And then I realized this is going to happen. It was just a slow but steady change. And now we're into a space where everything is just sort of homogenistic. Is that a word? It's sort of just all becoming the same. Nobody's trying anything brand new. No one's exciting, at least in my mind's eye. I haven't seen it yet. No one's doing anything really super exciting. They're not breaking any rules. They're just kind of getting stuff done and cranking stuff out. And advertising doesn't work anymore. And how do you reach people? And I've heard endless stories about people that have been agencies for years saying it's no longer fun. It hasn't been fun for 15 years. No one values anything. It's just like a dredge that's going along. And with AI popping up all of a sudden, I'm just like, okay, well, now that makes sense that, of course, it's going to go from being not fun anymore to we're just going to hand everything over to a machine and we're just going to type in some stuff. Oh, I want some stuff, and it's just going to take care of it. But I've been really heartened by the backlash. And immediately, it's like, it's AI slop. There's it's more than just artists. I think people are seeing and feeling something different about it. And it gives me hope that maybe there's going to be a rubber band effect. If the economy is still around in another 10 years, when we have work to do, that people are going to be seeing a different side of technology and say, we've been to the pinnacle, let's back off of this thing, which everybody is saying that this is inevitable. And I'm like, no, it's only inevitable if you allow it to be inevitable. And if you're using it, you've only chosen for yourself. So I'm hoping for other things to come along. Hopefully I answered that question.
Yeah. What I'm really curious about in your answer is that tools have become more and more powerful. It's true. But where the human element always comes in, even when new tools show up and we think, it's going to take everything over, it's going to be awful. It's that humans break the rules and they create the future with the way that they break the structure that's handed to them. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that and your feelings around that?
Yeah, there's a trade-off for me. There's a trade-off between what the tool allows me to do and what I came in with, and also who will accept the product that I'm putting out. I think that there's always going to be some variation in between where are they going to need actors in the future? Or is everything just going to be manufactured by a couple of prompts? That's always going to be like changing, and which is so sad because there's a spark inside of every human being, even the mistakes, even like the things that are just not perfect.
Right.
Those things are missing. And the creativity between human beings is always going to be better than the creativity of just sitting down in front of a computer and dumping in prompts. I think people have this inherent need to feel proud about what they've done. I know that I go back through all of my work all the time. I have a large language model and it's everything I've ever done. And that's where my creativity goes back to. I go back into that and I just realize how far I've come and how far I want to go. And if I have to use some sort of tool, to get an output, I hope that the people that I'm doing that output for are brave as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding less and less of that. And that makes me sort of sad. I would like to see people be more excited about taking risks. And now taking risks is using human beings again. And I'm like, well, eventually, hopefully that happens.
I think that is already on the way. There's a big movement right now coming in from Gen Z of wanting to go back to analog, wanting the rough edges and the things that are imperfect, very visible. And so I think you will get your wish probably in the next 5 years.
Thank you.
So speaking about community and groups, you're involved in a really interesting community. We've spoken about this, targeted mainly to the Gen X generation. Can you speak about this and how you got involved and why you are so excited about it?
Yeah, it was circuitous. You had turned me on to a group, and I entered that group and got to know the people in that group. And someone in that group brought up an article in the New York Times that was from an agency creator in Boulder who started a group called Geezer. And it was focused around focused on bringing in people that had been in the agencies and were in the Gen X group. And what he wanted to do was pull them all together and build an agency that did advertising, did agency work for people in the Gen X, market. So rather than having people think that they understand Gen X, use Gen X to reach those people. So he was giving them a new opportunity. And so he was in this article, and I read the article, and I sent work off to him. And somehow Augie Garrett reached out to me, and he had this thing going on called Molting Men. And it was specifically for Gen X men. So it was like segregated for men. And he said, this is something that I'm trying out, and I want to see how we all work together as far as like encouraging one another and building this whole group together. And his idea is also to build a separate one for women, because all of the research that he's done is they're asking for separation. And any of the stories that you and I have shared over time is that women have been not treated well in the agency space. And I believe that they deserve to be treated well. And I just want them to find the space where they are the safest. And Augie and I have spoken over time to like, how would we integrate anything like this? And it would be very carefully, because it's always about complete safety. And everyone has to have learned their lesson on the male side. That this can't be what it used to be anymore. It has to be something different. And so, but we're trying to encourage one another. The way that I've described it, everything I'm running into these days, I'm having a hard time describing. So I'm going to read something that I wrote to someone recently that I felt like I did a good job of describing it. So when I described what we were building, I said, we're a growing group of encouragers whose goal is to make a safe place where healing and renewed purpose can take place for a wide variety of Gen X professional creatives who found themselves struggling, recently displaced, or otherwise affected by the recent economy and changes in our industry. And it's been such a positive experience. It's pretty basic. It's just, for us, it's men getting together, and there's a triage sort of situation going on where we need to like, we're working on each other's fears, and we're being honest and open with one another and vulnerable to ask the question, what are you afraid of? And once we've gotten past that, and once people have been able to decompress, then it's like, why is fear holding you back? Mm-hmm. And what do you want to do with the time that you have left? And let's get excited about that. Mm-hmm. We've been building that for over a year. Right now, there's kind of a transition that's happening right now. We're going through a branding sort of phase right now, where we're really trying to rename the thing, put a new vision to it. And like I said, I'm excited about what's going to happen on the female side. And for women, I'm so excited about that. I want constant dispatches. I just want to hear that is exactly what they need. And at some point, I would really love to connect the two and make this thing right.
So there are so many questions I have about this group. One, if somebody was interested in joining this, if they hear this podcast and like, oh, I want to know more, where would they go?
If you're on LinkedIn, reach out to Augie, Augi Garrett, Garred, and he may still be calling it Molting Men there. I'm not sure. That was the original name, just as a beta test or whatever. And the first group that went through have just stuck around, and we're willing to make this thing bigger and bigger. If you're interested in it, talk to him about it, and he'll tell you all about it.
Thank you. Also, I've noticed since the pandemic, a lot of people want to meet in person as much as possible in community. People are really craving community, which I also think will be part of the antidote to some of the things happening with AI.
Yeah.
What's your feeling about community in general, even outside your specific group, but community in the creative world, and why it's so important as we become more isolated, more polished, and tech takes over more and more?
Yeah. I community for me is it's tribal. And I think maybe we're getting back to that space. I don't want to go too deep into politics, but I feel like we need to maybe be, we have to be building communities the way the hunter-gatherers kind of build communities, because I don't know what we're going to get stripped down to. I think that's like the first stage. It's just basically survival, to know one another and to trust one another and to be able to help each other out where we can. And then in the creative space, because that's the same thing, it's just on a different level. It's not, on a life level, but it's for us to be able to be there for one another. We're all so unique, but we're all so much the same, which is beautiful. I have community with people that are the weirdest people, and yet I can stand all of their weirdness, and we can still sit there and have a conversation and be the people that we're supposed to be. There's a lot of respect that goes back and forth that has to be shared that way, and a lot of patience. But community for me is the place where you get to know your best self and where you can actually act out your best self. I think the most frustration that I have right now is the things that are political and outside of my circle of influence is that they're outside of my circle of influence. There's nothing I can do. And so the best I can do is retract, and that's not a running from a problem. That's actually taking the problem head on. As I'm in my circle now, I want my people close to me. I want to be there. We had talked just a few nights ago with our group, and we were talking about who are we reaching out to? Who are we going to think that we're going to be making the best community for? And over time, we've talked about this because Gen X has a specific feel to it at this point. And it's not just specifically Gen X. We're not just blocking it off for that group. It's more than that. But kind of the founders and stuff are in that space. We were talking about what it was like to be kids when we were excited to become the people that we are today. We actually did what we thought we were going to do. But the thing that was exciting was that we now have the chance to build our neighborhood. Like, we can surround ourselves with someone who's not going to be a bully, or someone that's not going to kind of just not understand what we're talking about. They don't have the same records. They don't have the same music. It's like, we get to build the world that we want to build. So community is essential for us to keep living. And if we can make a better world in a small space, maybe there's a bunch of those, and maybe they all just kind of come together. We just learn how to be better human beings.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Speaking of community, I'd like to talk about voice, personal voice. You have quite a distinct voice in your work and in your presence. How did you develop your voice, and how did you learn to become confident in standing in that?
Confident in standing in that? I don't know if I'm confident in standing in that. I don't use my voice a lot. I think everybody has a built-in story. I don't know how things work in the grand scheme. I don't know how the universe operates, but I feel like whatever story we have, I hope that we have some sort of agency in that we chose something. I feel like whatever voice I have is the experiences that I come from. Being stuck from childhood on up in a town where I realized early on, this is a dead end. And there was no one there to help me. And it's Gen X on. I mean, it was the latchkey kid. So I'm home at 3:30. My mom's leaving for work. She didn't get home till 12, 1 o'clock. I'm taking care of myself. So you grow fast. home life was difficult. I had an abusive situation there that I had to survive and not let anybody know about because it would get worse and there's nothing that could get done about it. And so you learn to just sort of understand what pain feels like and whether you want to participate in hurting someone else in the future, or you want to flip that and say, like, I will never hurt someone in the future, or I will do my best to treat people well. And that builds you. So whatever voice eventually comes out of you starts there. And then the people that I was my heroes, I think my illustration heroes, my design heroes, anyone in the creative space, I was watching what they were doing and I'm like, oh my God, you're so brave. I'm like, this is amazing that you're taking this thing and changing it into the thing that you want it to be. And it's so odd and different. And people are like, struggling over whether it's good or not. It's David Carson with a weird type and people going like, what the hell is this? You can't read it. And, it's a magazine. People need to read it. I'm like, he's so brave. This is great. And why not? I mean, we're on planet Earth for one shot, possibly. And why not? Why not do something different? And it was exciting back then. So my voice over time has always been a respect for people that are in this position because it's not easy to get here. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of responsibility to communicate for other people. And when people ask about my art, I'm like going, I'm less interested in art and I'm more interested in communication. Mm. I want to convey people's ideas. I think it's important and people need me to do that. So that's been my sort of my voice, I guess. What have you seen in my voice that stands out? Is there anything that you see that I don't see?
You have just a very specific look and feel, and your voice is very straightforward, but it's sort of dreamy at the same time, if that makes sense. You have a otherworldly quality about you, even though what you're communicating is very clear.
Wow. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I guess to speak to that, it's been all my influences. I've seen so many fantastic artists and I'm just like, how did you say that? How did you say that so quickly? Or how did you get to the point? I had to get to the point really quickly as a kid. Like I didn't have a lot of opportunity to be a kid. I had to grow up super fast. And so it's like no playing around here, which was a lot of seriousness that, I wasn't serious all the time. I mean, it's still with my friends and hanging out and, still the partying teenager years and stuff like that. But I really buckled it down and I just said, there's only so far that I can go. And then communicating for other people has always been a responsibility, I feel like, to me. Mm-hmm. And to get to the point quickly is always the job. If somebody can understand a concept in less than a second, mm-hmm. That's your job. And for it to be dreamy is really interesting. It has to be the influences. It has to be all these heroes in the past that really I saw things and I just went, that's inspiring to me. Mm. So kudos to all the people's, all the giants' shoulders that I'm standing on.
Speaking of one of those people, a few years back in a Zoom call, I spotted a poster on your wall and you told me it was Charles S. Anderson. Oh my God, there it is. So how did you find him and how has his work influenced you?
In the 80s, Charles Anderson, at least in my section of the world, and most creatives, I think that were in design at the time, he popped out of, in Minneapolis? And he was always showing up in the communication arts books, and he was kind of like burning his own path with all these different brands. All of a sudden, he was building worlds around a paper mill out of Michigan called French Paper Company. And his entire feel and approach to it was so unstoppably brave. He was just like, it was a little bit of fun and making fun of the paper company and that they were like the blue collar workers and the run of the mill club. And it was just great. And I remember seeing other artists that would collect paper samples when we were getting paper samples at the agencies and stuff at the Design Bridge. And they were so innovative and so different, and type was being used in such interesting ways, and debossing and all kinds of stuff, those little packages and stuff that everybody that when it came in, everything else that they would look at was just like dog-eared and looked at and notes written on and stickers on them and everything. But all of his stuff that came in, they all just really treated with a lot of reverence. It was really cool, and it went to a special file, and no one ever touched it. Or if you did, you had to use the gloves or whatever. That's ridiculous. But it was a chance for me when I looked at his work to understand that you can build a world out of something, that your idea can actually build an entire world. And he was phenomenal for that paper company. And he changed so much in the industry, looking at recycled papers, changed a lot. I mean, his story is pretty interesting there. So that's how I came across him. And the people that I talked to, when I asked if they're interested in him, do you have samples? And they're like, oh yeah. And I said, are they pristine? And they said, oh yeah. So that's how I learned about it.
I love that. Okay, so let's move from Charles over to brand tattoo.
Mhm.
Is there a line that connects you from your influences to doing that work? And can you describe what a brand tattoo is?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, there are so many concepts that are happening right now that are difficult to explain succinctly. I can use different things that you might be familiar with, but I'll do my best. And I don't talk to people. I'm not talking to people on a regular basis. I'm just working every day. So I don't have to explain things every day. So it's just in my head. But the through line is that I was working, I had started a mastermind group with some people.
Mhm.
And what we had done was ask the question, how can we create other streams of income?
Sure.
So is there something laying around in our files that you can access, that can be turned into something that can be quickly used in some way that you can actually make a passive income from? And so that was the challenge. Is there something out in your circle of influence that you can actually grab? And one of the things that I've been doing since, and I think I went back and I started looking at it, and it was like around 2013. I had just sort of started when I was finishing up a job or when I had nothing else to do and it was late at night, 2:00, 3:00 in the morning, and watching something on YouTube. I would just kick my feet up and I would grab some paper and I would stick it in a clipboard and I would just start to download. I'm just like drawing whatever I want. Maybe it's associated with what I'm watching. I'm just kind of doing like free form sort of stuff. I'm doing like handwritten stuff. I'm like hand type, faces, characters, anything. And I just sort of like letting it all go. It wasn't for anybody. It wasn't for any purpose. And I just kept on creating that every few days or every day. I would kind of do that. Not like it was like it wasn't purposeful. It was just sort of like relaxing. Why not? I'm just going to sit there and sketch. And so over time, what I had built up here, and I've got my little prop back here. This is all of my daily drawings, is what I call it. And so it's a stack of folders here filled with just bond paper that's probably about 8 inches thick. And on every page, there's at least 10 pieces of art. And so there was just thousands and thousands and thousands of things that I had created. And I pulled that out and I just said, is there something I could do with this? And in that process, we all just kind of looked at it and just said, well, what would you do with it? I'm not sure. So actually I boiled it down and cleaned everything up and I started making individual pages that kind of just like showed off each of the pieces of work. And everyone was just like stopped. And they're like, oh my God, these are really super interesting. Like, what are you going to do with it? And the first thing that crossed my mind was, and other people had said so too, maybe they were like, maybe you should start a stock agency where you can put this and people can purchase it. And I'm like, I am not going to sit there and build some huge catalog of stuff and get online and try to keep that thing updated and set up all the marketing for that. I'm not going to do it. And so what I did was I just said, well, maybe I can just pull these pages together and people be interested in those.
Mhm.
And so people, as we started to talk about it, someone asked the question, how much would you pay for one of these pages of Matt's work? And someone said $100. And I said, oh, you're crazy. That's insane. Like, why would you just do that? It's like random stuff. And so I thought maybe that's the direction it would go. But then I just wasn't sure. Then the gal that started the whole group together, she asked me, she said, I love what you're doing and that this is just free form stuff. She said, I love the style. I love how it looks. She said, I'm going to be starting a brand new thing in the summer for creatives, kind of a creative camp.
Mhm.
And I would love to have you do some artwork for that in this sort of style. And I said, okay, well, let's just do it the way that I normally do it. I'm not going to concentrate on what you want for a logo or anything. You tell me about your business. We'll just do the walk into the whole project. And I'll onboard you and ask you questions about what you want and how you feel and if you want it exciting or whatever. And I'm just going to sit down and completely blank out. And I'm not going to think about market, and I'm not going to think about how it's accepted. I'm just going to go crazy. I said, because that's what I do on these things. I just let my mind wander. And how I'm affected is how I'm affected. Some of it will make sense. Some of it might not make sense. And so she said, that sounds great. And I created 3 pages of artwork that were just sort of built around this idea that she was, and I was just riffing on it, just riffing, because I was totally free. And I said, in my mind, and I told her too, I said, out of all of these pages that I'm going to be handing you, something in there's going to click, and we're going to go, oh, that's the logo. And we're going to, parts and pieces, we're going to make it a logo. So I did the presentation, and she just kind of sat there and she said, oh my God. She said, I'm just going to buy these pages. I can use everything on here.
Wow.
And I just went, what? And I said, we were just going to, like, something was going to pop out all of a sudden, and that was going to be the thing that we went after. And she said, why would I do that? She said, I'm a designer. All these things I can use. She said, I'm so excited about this. I could use that there and there and there and there. And I said, this is just rando stuff that's coming out of my head. And she said, I want every bit of it. And I was like, and all of a sudden I just went, that's it. All I need to do is to talk to someone who needs art or needs to see their vision and taken through my large language model and put out into the world, where I'm riffing on it because I'm excited about what she was doing. I was excited about it. She was excited about it. And I can pull my own things out of the thin air and out of my memory bank with things that I'm excited about, and try new things and something exciting, and then do the presentation and watch people just go, oh my God, I've never seen myself that way. The way you just described my voice is exactly how I feel, or exactly what my clients are telling me they feel when I present the presentation to the artwork, to the brand tattooing, because I'm creating all of these pieces of art that are associated with what they want to do. And the best that I've been able to describe it is that I'm creating libraries of assets that become their voice for a world who needs to know who they are. And I'm not worried about anything else. And some of it's totally random. And the most random things are the things that the people get most excited about. And I've also found out that during the process of extracting, because when there's a discussion about what's happening in their business, I want to learn about their business. I want to learn about everything that you would ask questions about if you're creating a brand for somebody. But I also want to ask them the question, who are you? I have two distinct interviews that I do. Tell me about your business. Tell me about your competition. Tell me about your buyers. Tell me about everything else. Tell me about how you're going to use this stuff. And then the next question is, okay, that was cool, but now I don't care about your business anymore. I don't care about your business anymore. I don't care about the model. I don't care about anything. Who are you? And I started asking them questions like, tell me about life for you when you were a kid. Why are you doing this? Tell me a story that's going to make me cry. Tell me a story that's so deep that tells me who you are. I want to know who you are, because I have to understand why they're doing something to be able to create a voice for the people that they want to reach the most with the thing that they love doing the most, which is their business. And so brand tattooing is nothing more than that. It's just me going through a process of creating entire libraries and expansive libraries of things that are saying what these people are falling in love with in their business and their clients. They're in love with their clients. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting business. It's kind of like making a brand illustration system, but it's not. And that's the best that I can explain it if someone needs to see it in their mind. But I have the response I've gotten back from people when I've done presentations is that it has changed their business. When they look at it, they're like going, oh my God, I've never seen myself like this, and this is who we are. And all of a sudden things start firing, and all of a sudden we're connected very, very closely. And it's that human approach. So, yeah.
I love it. And some people have asked me when they've seen your work, do people actually wear these as tattoos, or are they just images?
That's so interesting. I had one gal that I worked with, who was a very good friend, and she asked me, she's like, could you please do a brand tattooing for me? And she was so interesting. And I'm like, yes, I would love to do this. And so I said, tell me about your life. Tell me about what you're doing, what you're excited about. And so I created all of these images for her. And when she actually received them and she started to use them, she was like she said, Matt, she said, I don't know how you did this. She said, because every time I put this out, she said, it just feels like me. She said, it feels like I could not have not told anyone else to make this any better. And she said, this just comes out of you. And I said, because I've been watching you from the outside. You're such a beautiful person and just a really interesting person. And then later on, because she has tats, she has a sleeve that she's got on, and it was getting filled in over time. And she said, I wanted to let you know. She said, would it be okay if one of these got turned into a tattoo? And I'm like, oh, that's why I call it brand tattooing. It's so close to you that it becomes part of your skin. I want it to be something. When I was originally doing it, I told people, I said, I'm calling it brand tattooing because I imagine this scenario where you walk into a bar and everyone around there is just normal. No one has tattoos. Everyone's basically normal, doing their thing. They're their own person. But then there's the dude sitting there with just tattoos, man. And like you can walk up and all of a sudden you see some tattoo on his arm. Like maybe I'm into motorcycles or something. There's a specific motorcycle I'm into or whatever. And I see it on his arm. And I'm like, oh my God, are you into that? All of a sudden we're connected and we haven't even met. And all of a sudden it's so important to him because he sacrificed his body for eternity. For as long as he's living, he's going to carry that passion on his body. And I'm like, people are doing work that they're in love with. And I'm like, how can I make that art? How can I make it so close to them that they want to put it on their body? And they're like, that's me. That's why all of a sudden it was just like brand tattooing, because it was for branding, but it was also so close to these people that it was describing them. And I've gotten a really good response from that whole making up of that name.
I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
We are just at the 45-minute mark. So if anyone has any questions they would like to ask Matt in just a little bit, you can turn on your camera. I'll cue you, but you can also drop them in the chat. All right. So I have two more questions for you, Matt. If a young illustrator asked you right now whether to pursue this path, what would you actually tell them?
Let's just go back to being human. I would need to know who they are. I can't give a generic answer. I think that right now, if I saw a spark inside somebody and I knew that they were ready to fight and I knew that they were ready to do whatever it took to be original and they were ready for what's coming at them, and I described a little bit of that in my career, what I had gone through, and they were not daunted by that or maybe a little afraid, but like, there's nothing else I can do. I think I would hear in who they are, and then it's up to them. I think in a more generic, broad way, it's dangerous right now to be looking at this as a career because everything looks dangerous right now as a career. I'm not sure what's safe and where we're going to be. I think it's going to take time for us to see how this all plays out. But I think that would be my answer. And I hate that answer because I know that 15 years ago, I would have said, oh, hell yeah. Yeah. Or 20 years ago, I would have been so on fire. I'd be like, oh yeah, generically, yeah, do this thing. This is worth it. And now I'm like, let's see if you're the person that can make it.
So let's talk about safety for a second. With everything that's happening and all of the rapid changes, I think the entire creative industry is being affected by this.
Yeah.
So my question is, if you're a creative person, is safety going to become less of a driver in this work? And is it more about passion and having endurance? I can't predict the future, but I feel like we are getting a preview. What are your thoughts?
Oh, this is really current. We're talking about this in our group. And one of the things that I kind of walked away with, because the question was, we can't constantly be like referring back to the good old days. Because, this is who we are. We're the old people now. And I'm like, I get that. We're excited about it just because it was our passion and what we started from. But we need to be in the present. And I feel like that's one thing. If anything is going to change on the creative side, or people become more creative, I would need to talk to the people that are involved in it right now to understand how creative they are, or how much they feel that they can do, or if they don't know what creativity is, like in the sense that maybe we saw it where it was exciting to do something all brand new. I mean, maybe that's our part. Maybe that's the thing that we can bring to the table, is that it's our passion, not our past, but our passion that still remains. In a group talk the other night, I said, we're building this neighborhood again with creatives that we get to choose, or kind of pull in, or whatever, create a space for.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm ready to jettison everything and be 13 again. And that means now. So that isn't like then, that's now. I want to be 13 and excited again about what's coming. And I want to be excited about the people around me and showing me brand new things. And I don't want to be telling them what I know. I want to be learning what they're excited about, and maybe dropping a bomb here and there and like going, oh yeah, that's really safe, buddy. Let's try something super not safe.
Mm-hmm.
And see what you get about that. And that's what I can bring to the table. So if creativity is going to come back, maybe it needs a little bit of mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, because I don't know how safe people feel doing something out of the realm of what. And for me, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I'm not working for an agency. I'm not having someone else tell me what to do,
Mm-hmm.
specifically. So yeah, hopefully that was an answer to that question.
That's a great answer. I have a question here from Chris Martin.
Okay.
He is asking me, how do you keep your fire going when you don't have a client?
Why not? Weird that it would take a client for that fire to be put out or turned on. If it's there, it's there. I'll still make art. Like I said, I've sat here and I'll make pages of art when I'm free on my free time. And this group of men that are getting together to do this thing, that's helpful. I also think that I'm just not going to give up. I don't know how to answer that, because like the fire is there. It's like asking the furnace, well, when there's nothing in the kiln, it's like, how does that fire keep going? It's like, if no one has to be there to turn it on and off, it's just going. I'm just, nothing's going to stop me. Like, nothing stopped me as a kid, and nothing's going to stop me now. Like, I'm still going to keep going here. I'm excited about the next people that I meet. I'm excited about the next wonderful, creative person that's doing something different or new or even the same, but just hearing their story. I don't think the fire ever dies just because I'm not getting paid, or I think it's who I am. So, yeah.
I've got another question here from Devron Bauman, and he says, I get what Chris is saying, though it's almost like a fire fueled by validation from being selected by a client and having a new perspective to work from. It's hard to be that imaginative and creative, especially when you're broke and worried. So let's talk about being broke and worried.
Yeah, broke and worried. That's, boy, let me think for a second on that one too. Being broke and worried after 27 years feels like another Tuesday. It just doesn't matter.
Oh my God.
I mean, I've had years when I was wall to wall booked. I mean, and those were still early years and mid years, but man, was I busy. And I would give anything for a break. And then all of a sudden there would be like a downturn or whatever. And I used to get a little worried. I'm like, oh my God, how long is this going to last? And, it's the ship captain that's been out at sea for 30 years. And it's just like, and he's standing on the deck in the biggest swells and he's not anchored down and he's just standing there. People are like, you're out of your mind. And he's like, it's another Tuesday, buddy. It doesn't matter. Like, we're going to ride this thing out. Yeah, it does get difficult. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't get difficult, but I've just learned that I've built enough goodwill between myself and people from the past that jobs come in, and I know that that's not safe to just say that. I don't have a funnel. I'm terrible at all that stuff. I wish I was better at it. But things come in, and I'm alive, and I'm still going, and then all of a sudden I just get hit. And I'm like, there you go. This is how this thing works. And then all of a sudden I got more work than I can actually keep up with. And then I'm excited about the people I'm working with. And the validation doesn't need to come because I've been published thousands and thousands of times, and it doesn't really matter that much to me anymore. Now it's just sort of the excitement of talking to someone new. And I don't need that filled in anymore. Yeah. So hopefully that's an answer to the question as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Last question for you. What books are you reading?
Right now I'm reading Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me. And this is Why We Justify Foolish Beliefs, Bad Decisions, and Hurtful Acts. Well, I am learning the psychology of how people just sort of like ignore what they're doing and go on doing what they're doing, even though from the outside, you're like, how could you possibly do that? And we make excuses, and we just sort of keep things level. And it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me on my toes thinking that I have it figured out, or that my perspective is correct. I'm always asking questions. I'm ready to check that. And then realizing that we're all human and we can all be fooled. We all have to be asking questions and being kind.
I love that. That's a beautiful place to stop. If anybody would like to turn their camera on and speak to Matt directly, this is your moment. And in the meantime, I agree with you completely, especially about weathering the storm, and we're going to ride this out, and it's just another Tuesday.
Maybe.
I love that so much because I think that really speaks to the courage and the heart of creativity.
Yeah.
All right. So it looks like if you'd like to turn your camera on now is the time, and otherwise, I think we're good. Matt, any last words? Where can people find you? How can they interact with you?
I stay pretty hidden. So if you want to get to know me and you've been encouraged by whatever I've said, then congratulations, because I'm really hard to find. It's just Matt Wood Illustration on Instagram, and same thing on Threads. And I don't post a whole lot, but that doesn't mean that I'm not active. And anyone that wants to reach out to me, and if you're creative and you want to talk, let's talk. Let's get to know each other.
Thank you, Matt. I so appreciate you joining us today. What a wonderful conversation, as always. And it is my honor to spend time with you.
Oh, same here. Same here.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.